Welcome to Get Moving TV. I'm Dr. Chris Landon and I serve as your host. Here in Ventura County, we have a tremendous commitment to our educational system. What happens though is some of our students are not included, and we've worked very hard with Eddie Tudori, who's been on this show before, around a program to include our patients, our students with autism and Down syndrome and or otherwise developmentally just different. These are the people that we don't want you not looking at in the supermarket. Engage. These are people too. These are people who want love, who want a Coca-Cola, who want the same things that you do. But being able to communicate, being able to be social, these are very special skills that need to be obtained. So I was called by several of our interviewees today just about Eddie and what we can do to really tell his story, because Eddie has devoted his life and sitting next to him in an airplane to Peru as we were out to go there. I heard some stories that if I had enough hair, it would be curling. So today, though, we have Andrew Klein. Andrew, so tell us a little bit about yourself. You're one of the people that I ended up chatting with. So what's your background, and how are you going to spread the word of Eddie out to the world? And
my background is I like to make documentary films that are music in style and theme and subject matter. 2006, I volunteered on a film. It was my first effort. I never aspired to be a filmmaker, nor have I ever gone to school for it. But I found out a film was being made about someone that I idolized as a kid, a guitar player. So I just begged and knocked on doors and wouldn't give up until they would agree to allow me to participate in some way. In what way, I had no idea. I just wanted to be a part of it because I was so passionate about it. So they let me come in to transcribe the interviews. And then from there, I got to know everybody, and it escalated, and I got to be a part of the team that was making the film. And after that experience, I just enjoyed it so much that I set out to make my own films after that.
well, so much of what we do here at the Ventura Adult Continuing Education is really about trying to give people that opportunity. The way the classes are structured, they're 8 to 4, and really just trying to put a structure behind life. Was your life a little disordered and has put structure to it, or were you a kid and used to make films with Super 8 cameras, or how did you get drawn? Was it more? It was the subject, and tell me a little bit more.
I'm a guitar player, and the subject that they were making the film about was a guitar player. And so when I got to be a part of that process, I guess you could say I took to it like a fish to water. You know, I just really enjoyed it because I'm a creative person. I love to create. I love to be artistic. So that whole process of telling a story on camera, I loved it. I love doing it, and I'm grateful for this opportunity to tell Eddie's story, because I think it's not only a great inspirational story, but it's one that I think everybody should learn about.
So it's hard to script someone's life, but in terms of bringing out a documentary, you have to work with some kind of structure. How's a documentary structured?
Wow.
These are the easy questions.
They're all structured differently. You structure it around the story you want to tell. So we've met with Eddie, and we've spoken with him about his story. I've read a lot about his story, and the better I get to know him, the more it will help me to tell his story on camera. And again, I think it's fascinating, inspirational. I can't even find enough adjectives to describe his story. It's pretty incredible.
So some people haven't heard his story of a rock and roll drummer, and we're going to talk about someone he knew in his past who really was a connector here, who got in an accident after leading the life of a drummer, and that changed him. and he repurposed his life. And now we're going to be going to Jordan. We got a call from Germany from someone a psychologist from Syria, who said, I need help. We have these immigrant refugee children, and they've been destroyed by the war. And as it turns out, she was in Aleppo too, and now she was one of those refugees. We're going back down to Peru. We go all over because it's a proselytization. It's spreading the word. And he's not a rock god, but certainly he's an inspiration in terms of what happened to him spiritually through this event in his life. But let's return to you. You've now made 4 documentaries or films.
This would be my 5th film in the last 9 years.
So any others about drummers? Because we work things out, our own stuff. When we look at Martin Scorsese and everybody else, it's their vision of a film, and it's something that's inside them that needs to come out. I mean, they're driven as you are.
It's funny that Eddie happens to be a drummer because I have a brother who happens to now be deceased. He was a drummer in a rock band, and we made a film about that band and him. And it might not be a worldwide commercial success, but I'm very humbled and grateful for the reviews that we've gotten. I've never read a negative or bad word about the film. I think people enjoyed it, and that makes me, inspires me to want to make more films. And again, he happened to be a drummer. It's just so funny that Eddie's a drummer as well. And that's just a coincidence.
What in the film that you made about your brother? Because been tragedies in my life. I write for myself, and I'll write short stories or songs or whatever. What do you think resonated in people? What were you able to get across to them that made it a film that was well received?
The band that he was in consisted of 4 virtuoso musicians. The people that were around them, record companies, recording engineers, whoever it may be, the fans, everybody had this belief that they would be amongst the most successful bands of that era. They were just fantastic. And you could just see that they were on their way, like watching the Beatles at the Cavern in 1962. But it didn't work out for so many reasons, which are detailed in the film. And I think a lot of people can watch that film and feel for them, because you feel like you're going to take that journey with them, and then it doesn't happen, and it just breaks your heart. So would've, could've, should've, we all have that in our lives, and that we can apply to ourselves, our own would've, could've, should'ves. And when you see 4 promising, young musicians who seem to be on their way, the rug gets pulled out from under them, and you just, how could you not feel for them?
So your art was that film. It wasn't a painting. It wasn't a song. It was that film. And it's a great painting or anything else is able to harness those emotions in us. And
that's why Eddie's story really interests me, because it's such a heartfelt story. And for those who don't know, Eddie was body surfing, and he had an accident and was told that he would never walk again. He was told that, and he overcame that and devoted his life to helping others once he recovered. And so there's so many incredible intertwined stories there that will just really tug on your heart. Once we present it on camera and get Eddie to tell his story, and we start presenting all the other stories that surround it, I think it'll be great. I think it'll be very inspiring and touching and emotional and really positive and uplifting, and bring awareness to his foundation, his charity, and what he's doing with his life since he recovered. It's great. That's the kind of story I want to tell.
Well, Andrew, thank you so much. Ventura, we have lots of stories to tell, and you're going to help us with telling Eddie's along with Andrew. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Well, I'm here with Rick Nelson, who was introduced to Rick Nelson by our topic of conversation today, Eddie Taduri. But so tell us about your earlier life where you would have met Eddie and who you are, where we're going. We'll talk about this.
Right, so one phase of my life, I was a road manager for a small group called the Beach Boys. And road manager was in charge of just about everything that happened on the road. And Eddie Taduri, during that time, was hired as a drummer to play with the band. So we became friends. There were times on the road where you needed somebody you could talk to, because you're kind of stuck with the same people day in and day out, and you don't necessarily get along with all of them. Eddie was one of those guys that I think can get along with anybody. So we got along famously. And after that, he was working for the Rick Nelson, and the Beach Boys happened to be in Colorado when Rick Nelson was performing, and we had the night off, so we went to see the Rick Nelson performance. And Eddie came into the dressing room and introduced me to Rick Nelson, to which I told him I was living in West LA near where he lived, but my phone number was listed, and he apologized for all the groupies calling me.
Which I'm sure your wife appreciated.
Exactly.
That, no, that's the other Rick. No, that's nothing to do with me.
Right,
so.
exactly.
Well, so how did you get to West LA?
I had a father that didn't like living in Ohio, and when I was a senior in high school, he moved the whole family to Southern California.
That sounds like every Beach Boy dream and song I've ever heard. So there you are. You're living all of the dreams. You've moved to California. How old were you when the Beach Boys road manager thing came up? How did that occur?
Right. So after I graduated from college, I went to UCLA. I was going to go to law school, and I decided that I wanted to go to cosmic law school instead. So I actually went to India and trained to be a teacher of transcendental meditation. And I was working in this students' meditation organization in Westwood. And Mike Love of the Beach Boys came in to meet some people one day, and we got to be friends. And lo and behold, he said, "You want to come and work for us?" So I left being a teacher of transcendental meditation and became a road manager for the Beach Boys.
So how was that? I mean, being on the road, there's a lot of craziness that occurs generally, although
24/7.
So were you able to bring transcendental meditation, survive it yourself? I guess we'll just start there.
So those were interesting times because half of the band were meditators and the other half were not meditators. So I had to balance life as the challenge of keeping everybody on time, in place. I was going to say drug-free, but as best I could, drug-free. And it was rock and roll. I mean, anything can happen, and did.
So meditators versus medicators, I guess.
We actually chartered 2 airplanes, one for the smoker non-meditators and one for the meditators, so it was a challenge, a lot of logistics.
Well, you remembered Eddie from those times on the bus. How did you come back into Eddie's?
So thank goodness for social networking, and Facebook is really the main answer, because I was looking at my Facebook page one day, and I saw a guy that I had been following say that he was buying tickets to go see a benefit concert for Eddie Taduri in November in Santa Barbara. And I said, "I know that name. What's going on with a benefit?" I was very curious all of a sudden. So went online, did some research, found all about Eddie Taduri, living in Santa Barbara, has this whole story about a foundation trap that he's established to help underprivileged and mentally challenged people. And I literally, my whole body was moved just in reading the story. Partially because I knew him, and I knew what a good guy he was then, and then what phenomenal work he's done for the last 20 years. So I said, what the heck? And I wrote him an email. Less than 5 minutes, he called me back. "Rick, how are you?" Same, like I saw him yesterday, just the nicest guy. And I told him that I was fascinated by how well he's doing and everything that he's up to, and that I had a good friend who happens to be a documentary filmmaker, and we had already talked about this between the two of us, and I asked Eddie if he'd be interested in meeting with us to talk about the possibility of making a film about his life and his work. And he said, when do you want to have lunch? So we had lunch. We all seemed to mutually agree that it would be a great project for the world to know this story. And we're at the very beginning stages of trying to put together the whole project. And I think it's going to be something really worthwhile.
Well, I brought you to Ventura Adult Continuing Education. We had a conversation with Andrew and said, you know, what we have here is not basket weaving. We have a great studio. We have students who end up, 94% of them end up with a job somewhere. We just had a student come back with a job at lynda.com. And this is a project that's exactly what we want to do, that we want to make this stage figuratively available and actually available, and it might be time away from the studio at night or whatever it takes to help with this project, because I met Eddie through my wife, who's said, gosh, you know, it's our second date, I think. We're having this fundraiser, and how'd you like to meet some people who are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? I go, oh, I guess that'd be fine. And now I'm president of the Rhythmic Arts Project and travel with Eddie when I can. And we were able to get money from the Rotary Club here in Ventura County to help buy special drums and special equipment, adaptive equipment for people in wheelchairs, because they're so just tied in. And trying to capture all that is really what I appreciate, because they all have stories. They all want to be included. They all want to be Beach Boy listeners and participants. With you were at UCLA. You were telling me a little bit earlier, there's a little film project around the Beach Boys where someone followed around.
Right. One of the band members was in film school, and he was on tour with the Beach Boys, and he made a documentary of life on the road with the Beach Boys. And a few years ago, he called me up and told me that he stumbled across this film from the 70s, and he put it on DVD, and he was going to put it on DVD, and he wanted to interview me that day to tie in with the film, and he made a DVD called On Tour with the Beach Boys in 1974, and I got to show it to my kids to prove that I really did do that. It wasn't just a story.
Yeah, and I think that's, you know, how we connect up our present, our past, kind of the arc of our life. Your arc is, we could start in Peoria or wherever you were.
Lorain, Ohio.
Lorain, Ohio. Yeah, but that arc kept going through the Beach Boys, and now you continue on with trying to get across this story. In your spare time, what are you doing besides supporting this project?
I own my own business. It's a legal document preparation business. I help people save money by not using lawyers and getting their wills and trusts and legal paperwork done.
Well, that's interesting, knowing that you were intending to go to law school and transcendental meditation said.
Life is a bunch of concentric circles.
That's what I want to get across to my students and to the people listening, that you follow a path. Or it's not always one you planned out to go to law school and have things happen exactly on time. So
I learned a word along the way called perturbation, where you're heading in one direction and suddenly you're kicked to the right, and it's not a mistake. There's a reason why you get that, and you follow it the best you can.
Well, Rick, thank you so much. Ventura, it's time for you to get perturbed. Move, make a hip move, and help support this film as it's being made. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Well, I'm here with Marybeth Jacobsen. I met her daughter earlier, who was, I was told, spoke fluent Wookiee, but evidently she can only read Wookiee. We're looking forward to an event to celebrate our California Camarillo Innovation Center as we build this up, and I'm really hoping that you'll be a large part of it because of what we're trying to do in Ventura County. So we were talking earlier just about schools, and schools are good for educators, but the business community really hasn't been that involved. How does workforce development work on getting the business community involved?
Well, the Workforce Education Coalition started its work in Ventura County. We were incorporated in 2014, and in 2015 we had a number of student tours that we were providing, but the Ventura VC Innovates, Ventura County Office of Education VC Innovates, really covers that base very well. And it occurred to us we could do tours all day, every day, and there still would be students who didn't have the benefit of the opportunities. So then we moved into providing professional development opportunities for teachers. Great experience. A couple-day program in the summer, we would take them to businesses, introduce them to the business owners. The second day, we would provide them opportunities to acquire project-based learning lessons and give them the materials to take it back into the classroom. And as I drove around the county, which I do most days, I have the opportunity to think. And it occurred to me that we really didn't have a forum for the business community to offer input into program design and to share with educators what the true skill needs are for the jobs that are available. And so it was like a light bulb going on, and I said to myself, you know, we ought to reboot the historic guild concept so that we have a 21st century version of the guilds. And our business people today are the master craftsmen, are like the master craftsmen of the Renaissance. And so what we have done is started what we call the Guild X movement. And so far we have a manufacturing guild, we have an IT guild, and we get together once a month. And God bless these business people, they come and they meet with us every month. We have high-level educators join us as well from the adult school, from the community college district, from the county office of education, and we've set goals. And we have identified what it is that's important to the business community. They want to reach lower into the grades and give elementary students the opportunity to explore tools, you know, have a young lady figure out what is it like to hold a screwdriver, what's the difference between a Phillips head and a slot head, a wrench, you know, a drill, all that kind of stuff. They want to encourage young women to participate in manufacturing and in IT. We see the numbers are way down for our young ladies. So we provide opportunities for them to come through businesses. They are interested in participating in apprenticeships. And what's interesting is that until we approach our businesses with the opportunities that are available, they're not aware of them. And our educators aren't necessarily as aware of the needs on the business side unless we create this forum, this platform for the conversation to take place. So that's what we're doing, you know?
Well, certainly this is what we hear nationally, that we're way behind in terms of skills compared to the Japanese or Chinese or wherever, and certainly it sounds like education in terms of getting that input from the business leaders as to what they really need. We're at Sierra Linda Elementary School, and we're doing app curation with 4th and 5th graders, because that's really, young women do get disempowered. And then somewhere around 8th grade, oh, it's not good for me to be in math, I should be learning to put on lipstick.
It's a cultural thing. And I have a colleague in manufacturing, and he, through one of our programs, he met a young gentleman and a young lady, and he invited them to take a tour of his plant. And in the process, he handed the young man a tool. And he might not necessarily have known how to use it, but he knew how to hold it. He knew how to manipulate it. He gave the same tool to the young woman. She didn't know what to do with it. It has nothing to do with skill or ability. It's just life experience. And we need to have our young ladies go into the garage with Dad just as much as our young men. And you learn a lot through those experiences. And our young ladies haven't had that opportunity for some time.
Well, my daughter's not a doctor. She's a civil engineer, and she's in charge of rebuilding 5 schools in Inglewood. Every child was left behind there, and she gets very passionate about it. But I blame Grandpa, because he was retired but still working construction, and she had a hard hat and a yellow jacket and a tool belt when she was 18 months old, and it ruined her for life.
Well, yeah, I tell you, we have what we call these STEM equity tours, and we take junior high and high school girls together in a group, and we take them to, we do it in manufacturing and IT, we take them to a small manufacturing facility, and then we take them to a larger facility. We give them the opportunity to speak with women who are engineers, women who are on the business side, women who are floor supervisors, and then we bring in a college professor, because some of these girls are in 7th and 8th grade. They've never talked to a college professor, so this is really heady stuff for them. But what we share with them is that there's just no reason, if manufacturing or IT is of interest to them, There's no reason for them to not pursue a career. And then we collect data at the end of the program. And what we find is that there's about a 50 to 60% leap in students who are interested in those careers after the tour compared to those who are interested in the career before the tour. So it's clearly an issue of exposure and letting these girls know what they're capable of and what options they have to choose from.
Well, and the other thing, we're trying to turn STEM into STEAM,
Right.
throwing art in there is because there is the design cycle, and that's what I keep seeing more and more. There's a much more rapid cycle in art than there is in manufacturing, and bringing that expertise, and we're trying to bring it into medicine as well because we need that rapid turnaround. Well, how can we help your organization the most?
Well, we have, there is perpetual need for financial support for our organization. Now, last year we gave away 45 laptops to truly low-income kids. These are kids who are writing essays on cell phones. Boggles my mind. These are bright kids. But they are behind from the moment that they walk into the classroom door because they simply don't have access to technology outside of class. We lost our funding for the program. If anyone would be interested in helping us, we've got a great deal. For $350, we are giving refurbished laptops loaded with Microsoft Office Suite, a flash drive, a carrying case, and a 4-year warranty. They can contact us and participate in that program, and we would be grateful, as would all the kids.
Well, Ventura, I think you have your work cut out for you. The information about how to donate is running below, and I really expect to see laptops in the hands of every child who needs one. So, Ventura, it's time for you to get moving.